Hey, welcome to Let's Talk College, real conversations about college experiences in the college admissions world. I'm here today with Julie Noors, parent of a college student. This is my first interview with the parents. I'm really excited to talk about that perspective because we've done a few with recent graduates and current college students. So I'm really excited about it. Julie, would you introduce yourself and kind of tell your experiences?
Sure. I'm Julie Noors, and my daughter is a sophomore at A&M, and I also have a freshman son at Keller High School. I am a certified Texas public school teacher with a middle school background, and I really do like middle schoolers, but not when they live in my house. That's hard. So I like it when they come and go. But so that's my professional background. I also have a side interest in adolescent mental health, and I try to be involved in the community. I do a lot with Keller ISD, and I've been PTA president on several campuses, just supporting the schools. I can do the fun stuff when I volunteer. I can do the things I like about education and not have to do the stuff that I don't like about education when I'm a volunteer. So, and my kids are my full-time job. I mean, I have a husband and everything, but I take care of my kids and make sure they're doing what they need to do.
How long have you been out of the classroom?
20 years,
Okay.
officially out of a Texas public school classroom. I have been a sub and have subbed at all levels in Keller ISD in the Keller High feeder pattern. So I feel like I still have boots on the ground in the education world. I still do know what it's like to sit in a classroom. I just haven't had a public school paycheck since Allison was born, who was, as part of her story, she was a micro preemie. She was
Oh, wow.
9 weeks early and weighed 1 pound, 15 ounces. And they told us all these things that they said, we don't know. And now I know. And it worked out really, spoiler alert, it worked out okay. But 20
Yeah,
years ago, we didn't know. But anyway, so from small things comes greatness. So, yeah.
That's amazing. So Allison's a sophomore at A&M.
She is.
You went through this process just not too long ago, and now you're ramping up again for a new student. What are you going to do differently this time?
Everything.
Like
Because
what?
I have two different students. I have Allison knew that she wanted to be an Aggie. Her dad and I are both Aggies. And we did tell her, and we told Garrett, you can go wherever you want to go to school, wherever you want. You can do whatever you want. But she did choose wisely. But she's also meant to be there. And she knew that early on, and she knew that she was capable of succeeding there and doing well. And those are the people she wanted to be around. She looked at the whole package and decided that's what she wanted to do. And she knew when she was in 9th grade and worked really hard to get there. And then Garrett is in 9th grade now, and he doesn't know what he wants to do. He doesn't know where he wants to go. He doesn't know anything except the next 10 minutes in front of him, which is typical for a 9th grade boy. So I'm not too worried, and he'll find his way. But Allison drove herself. Everything that she did, she chose without too much prodding from her parents. And Garrett is choosing too, but he's choosing different things. So Allison took pre-AP and AP. Garrett will probably do dual credit. He's taking some academic classes, one pre-AP class, and he would like to do dual credit so he doesn't have to take English in college. Smart, right?
Yeah, well, it's definitely, I mean, we talk about that because people are like, should I do a dual credit class or an AP class my senior year? And my question is always, where are you planning on going to college? Because if you're planning on going to a public university and, you're not, then you're fine doing dual credit. You're actually probably better off because I don't know Keller's system. I know Carroll's, you end up getting 12 hours of college credit over that semester. And let's just talk about the straight up savings that is, right? That's a semester of college out of the way.
It is a huge savings. But what I didn't know then that I know now, now that Allison has accepted all of her AP credit, She has 80 hours and she just finished the first semester of her sophomore year. Awesome. If you know exactly what you want to do and you don't waver from that and you are driven and you want to get done. If you really like college and you're really good at it and you look up and you're a semester and a half, year and a half in and you're like, I have 80 hours, they're going to kick me out because I'm supposed to be done. She could graduate close to 2 semesters early. She doesn't want to do that.
Mhm.
She wants to live the college life and she's really enjoying herself. And really, it wouldn't surprise me if she stays in academia and becomes a professor because she just really thrives in that environment. But she's not happy about being finished early.
So one of the
there's
things
a risk to all of those hours, including
you're saying, yeah, go ahead.
Including not being able to change your major after so many hours and not being able to pick up a minor after so many hours. The state of Texas wants you to get out of school in a timely fashion. And if you're done early, great for you. And so there are moving parts in the background that I didn't recognize when she was in the middle of high school.
Yeah, because she could be done in 3 semesters, couldn't she? 15 hours a semester.
Mm-hmm.
Sooner if she decided to go to summer school.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, okay, so
not happy about that.
well, so this just to give the numbers on it. So that means we're like after 3 semesters on a traditional plan, a student would probably have about 45 hours of credit. Allison has 80 hours of college credit right now because A&M is pretty good about like AP credit. There's a lot of classes you can get credit for.
Yes. And it's not too hard to get that credit for most of them. And it's posted on their website so you can look and see.
And so then but the downside of that is all of those credit hours are the classes you would normally take the first year or so while you're trying to figure out what you want to major in. So if you decide to change your major, great, but the classes you're taking to be a full-time student have been major specific, and you're going to end up with, I talked to a student who's at NYU who changed majors. She changed from engineering to science and technology. And she said, I have a whole bunch of engineering credits, but they don't count toward my degree.
Right.
That of course comes with the NYU price tag, which is different than the A&M price tag.
Significantly different. Yeah.
Is she going to take fewer hours then? Because what some students will do is take 12 hours a semester instead of 15 and better grades.
She's going to, right now she's registered for 16 again. She thinks she likes that. That's the sweet spot for her. Keeps her busy enough that doesn't stress her out.
12 hours would be just too boring.
She would have way too much free time, I think. So she really likes one of her professors. She's a psychology major and is doing a sociology minor and is picking up a leadership minor. So that will help spread things out a little bit. So that she'll start the leadership classes this spring.
How many hours is she going to need to graduate total?
I don't remember.
Okay.
That's not in my brain.
Somewhere like 120, 125.
120. It's either 120 or 126.
Start throwing the minors on there. Yeah, it can create a little more.
She's going to do that and try to hang out with her favorite professor, probably has some research or something, and she might get a job. Who knows?
We talked yesterday with the student I talked yesterday. That's one of the things she said she did in college, really worked, and she's an Aggie too, really worked with professors to build those relationships. And when she got ready to apply for PT school, made a huge difference. She ended up getting into UT Southwestern and made the huge difference having the relationships with the professors. That
personal contact is so important, just like it is in high school, of finding your person who will write you a letter of recommendation, who will help you if you get in a bind. You need to make those relationships. And even when there's 71,000 kids, A&M has 71,000 kids, you can build those relationships and it can happen. It takes time and effort, but it can be done. And then the benefits can be lifelong because they always know you and they know people. Yeah.
Well, so what is the post-graduation plan? Is she going to try to get a job right out of college? Is she looking at pursuing something else for a graduate school degree? She thought that far ahead?
She would like to probably get a master's. She She changes her mind regularly. So she submitted her A&M application, and by the time her acceptance came, she had already decided that she would do something different than what she had planned out for her acceptance. And she's changed a few other times, but isn't that what college is for?
Yeah.
She's discovered the diversity and inclusion market, and every large company needs a diversity and inclusion officer. And there is a plan of succession where you start out as the coffee getter, basically, and then you can move up to VP level. And she sees that as being a way to, she's really likes her sociology and finds that as a way to be helpful in the world. So we'll see. Well, that's today's plan. I like it, but
we
all ends with a job.
And so you said that like she changed her mind between filling out her application and saying, hey, I want to major in this, and then getting the acceptance. She had already said, I don't think that's what I want to major in anymore.
She kept her major, but changed what she wanted to do.
Oh,
and
okay.
I think one reason she was accepted to A&M, one of her reasons, she was not automatic acceptance. She worked her tail off to get her SAT scores up, but she was not in the top percentage to get the automatic. So she's one of those small number of kids that was holistically admitted in her class year, which is, I don't know that she understands how impressive that is, but it really is. So she told her story in her application, and that's, and the story was, I want to go to A&M. I want to be a sociology major. I want to participate in the 5-year master's program through the Bush School.
Okay.
And this is what I want to do after that, which was basically what she's going to end up doing anyway. It just may not be a public service master's, but we'll see. She may decide to stay another year in College Station. But she told her story. She knew, and she was convinced at the time that that's what she was going to do. And I think admissions saw that she did the research.
I think that's something really important. I mean, that the admissions, one of the huge things that we're hearing from admissions officers right now is the two things they're looking for is, if you say you want to be an engineering major, right? How does your background, your resume line up with that? Jeff Slingo has a book about, I think it's called Who Gets In and Why, or something like that he just put out. And he talks about sitting in with Emory, the admissions office at Emory. And I read an excerpt from it. And I remember one of the things that stood out to me there was they were looking, I think the person said they wanted to go pre-med or med school or something. And they looked at their resume and they're like, there's nothing on this resume that says this kid's going to be a doctor. You know, they took, you know, if UT, if I can mention UT to an Aggie, UT has said that if you apply for engineering, business, or economics, you need to be calculus ready when you walk on campus. So they're looking at your resume, looking for that. I think A&M is doing something real similar. They want to make sure that they are confident you're ready for calculus before you walk into those majors. If you can say to a school, look, I want to major in this, I want to go to this school, they know you've done research, and it is, man, this year more than ever, the number of applications for everybody is up because people are applying to more schools this year.
Okay.
And that just makes it more difficult for colleges to have an idea of whether or not the student's going to go there. And so if even a couple of years ago when Allison was applying, you know, you have a kid that's applied to A&M, the A&M's got to know they're probably applied to 5 or 6 others. How do they figure out which school the kid is going to really actually go to? And so being able to say that, saying, look, I want to go to this school, I want to go to the Bush School of Public Service, or what did you call it? It was Bush School of what?
I think it's the George Bush School of Public. I think it's public service.
Public service.
Right. It's the master's program that has retired FBI and CIA people as the professors, and if that's what you want to do, then that's how you meet the people who you need to know. So, pretty impressive.
Yeah. So you say for Garrett, he's not as, because he's one of the first things I was going to ask when you said it's a different experience was, I do often hear there's one mom that I've worked with that I know the 3 older sisters, and I know what absolute rock stars they have been. And then the son, he's a boy, and like a couple of times I've been like, the mom's like, what is wrong with him? Like what? And I'm like, he's a boy. That's
Nothing,
just
Nothing's wrong with them at all.
Exactly. And on top of that, I mean, like, in fact, like I'm trying to convince her, like, at the time, I was like, as 14-year-old boys go, he is awesome. He is an amazing like, I've already told Kim that when our boys get to middle school, she's going to have to take them over full time because middle school boys will drive me nuts.
It's hard. And they are in middle school. Oh, middle school was hard all the way around. It's hard academically. It's hard socially. It's hard just being in their bodies because they're all the giraffe kind of business that happens. But I can say, and I didn't believe it, and actually I think it happened a little sooner than I really anticipated. And anyone who's had a boy at this stage told me, and I didn't believe them, it'll be okay. He'll find what he needs to do. He'll find where he needs to be. So in middle school, we did make him take all the advanced core classes, because when else can you find out if that's what you need to do is in middle school, when really there's not a lot of risk. It's middle school. Unless it's a high school course credit,
Mm-hmm.
if you get a C in 8th grade English, it's not going to ruin your future, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and he's dyslexic. So he is capable of the material and learning as long as he doesn't have to write it down.
Mm-hmm.
So for a student whose brain to hand output is really exhausting and tiring, and he can tell you something beautiful, but then will say the cat sat, but yet can tell you an elaborate story about the cat.
Mm-hmm.
Advanced classes all day long is not what he needs to do. It's not good for his brain. It's not good for him. And it's not good for our relationship either, which I discovered and finally listened to him on. And so we had a conversation yesterday that he's in band and he loves band, and he's taking technical theater where they get to saw things. It's awesome.
That's cool.
And he's taking principles of law enforcement for his 3 outside of core classes. And he's only taking 1 advanced. He's taking pre-AP English, and the others are on level. He's happy. He's academically happy. He's socially, he's getting the things he needs. He doesn't have to sit in a seat all day long because those 3 other classes have him up and moving as much as they can in this weird time. I am sending his counselor like a gift card this week for helping. I mean, I know Keller High has great teachers, but I feel like the counselor maybe worked some counseling magic, probably not. It was probably as random as anything else, but Garrett is happy and is successful. And the conversation yesterday was with his friends, and he was reiterating, he said, some of the kids that I'm hanging out with are taking all advanced classes. They're completely stressed out. They don't even know why they're taking it. Their parents made them do it, kind of thing. And Garrett said, thank you for not making me do things that are so out of my range that I'm miserable, like last year, is how he phrased it.
Yeah, it's about spacing that gap, right? I mean, talk about spark plugs, right? You have a spark plug and you space the gap just right, and that's what makes the engine fire correctly, but they're not right up next to you. You have to have that gap. Same thing happens for kids. It's spacing that gap correctly and finding that right space for the gap between where they are and where they need to be so they can jump over it without falling off the cliff.
Yes.
It's huge.
And he has time to do the things he likes to do. So I am glad that we made that decision when he started planning his courses for this year, and it has worked out, and he loves it, and he wants to continue, and he'll probably end up with a fine arts pathway and maybe law enforcement pathway also.
That's a different combination.
Yeah, but it turns out law enforcement and band kids have a lot in common. They like rules. They like a system. They like logic. They are kind of black and white in things and thinking. So it's meeting all of his needs. And so he's willing to do the hard work in English that he doesn't love, but he chose to do pre-AP English, and he's doing fine. He likes it. It's not overwhelming him. So I'm really proud of him, and he doesn't know where he wants to go. He doesn't know what he wants to do. And that's okay. We're trying to show him opportunities. So anytime a job pops up, then I'm like, hey, that's somebody's job. Somebody gets paid to do that. Did you know that's a thing? And he's like, stop, Mom. But
Yeah. I roll.
but yes, a little bit. But he's listening because he's taking driver's ed. I'm like, that's some guy's job is to teach you how to drive. He's like, huh, that is some guy's job. So just things that happen environmentally, but I want him, like, we'll do some college visits probably next year just to be on a campus besides A&M where he's very comfortable and knows things, but I'm not sure that's where he needs to be for who he is and who he wants to be as a person in the world.
Well, from the things he's enjoying right now, the cool thing is, and you touched on this, you don't need to have, yeah, if you want to be an investment banker, you probably need to go to an Ivy League top 20 school. Yeah, if you want to be, especially at a top firm, if you want to be in law enforcement, one, it's ridiculous to go someplace that you would have to, has a $70,000 a year price tag, because you're not going to come any close to that coming right out of college, getting your first job.
Right.
And so, but if you, and then a technical theater, if you wanted to do something like that, there's tons of options. If you just went liberal arts somewhere, there's so many options for schools to go to.
He just needs to figure out what and who does he want to hang out with. Like Allison knew, she was like, I love Aggies. I love all my people who are Aggies. I love my adult Aggies in my life. And I want to be like them when I grow up. And I want to be the Aggie who hangs out with the Aggies, who hangs out with the Aggies. She's got that. And Garrett hasn't decided that yet. He was really excited when he received his first college contact email came from band director at OU because he's band. And Garrett was like, band directors? No, I do things. No, I'm in band. He's at college. What?
Yeah.
And then he said, well, band director would be a cool job. Yeah.
My cousin is a band director up at Canyon High School. They placed 11th in state this week. And he loves his job. He does a good job with it. So yeah.
I get that saying, if you find what you love to do, then you won't work a day.
Yeah.
Well, some days you work, but you can find what you love and what you're willing to work for. Allison's willing to work for what she wants to do. And that's pretty impressive once they find that. And then you just know when they find it too. Like I knew when Garrett was a band kid, I knew the minute it clicked for Keller High School Band. And I wrote the directors a thank you note. So
band kids are so awesome to work with though. They're just, because that's the thing people don't get, the number of hours in a normal year, because Allison was marching band too, right?
She was, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I don't think people who aren't band parents don't understand, like when school starts, if school starts the third week of August, when does a marching band kid start back to school?
Last week of July.
Exactly. They don't understand that these kids, you're marching band kids, especially your junior year, because you're a section leader now. And you're starting, and it's not like you're going up there for a couple of hours.
You're not diddling around.
it's 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. starting in July, right? The last week of July, you start that up. And we've restructured the app camp schedule because
accommodate that.
Strictly to be done to make sure I have more weeks available in June and July, because those marching band kids those seniors need to have those applications done before they go back to section leader practice. Because
Allison was done with hers because of app camp. Because of your app camp. Thank you so much. Saved our relationship there, because I didn't have to keep saying, hey, have you done it? Hey, have you done it? Hey, have you done it? So that was awesome. And she was finished. She applied to A&M, OU, and UNT. They all fit her criteria that she would have been fine on OU campus, would have been fine at UNT. And submitted before she started band her senior year. And then she had a great year because she was done with the hard stuff. She didn't procrastinate. She was relaxed. She done all she could at that point, right? Junior year is the big one. And then
you got to let it sit. You got to submit and forget. That's what we tell them on the last day.
That's a very good phrase. Yeah.
Submit and forget.
Have you done all you can? Yes, I have. Okay, then go about your life.
That's what you control.
Yeah.
So, looking back at it, like, were there things that maybe you were told? This is my ongoing metaphor right now, right? That we have this recipe for kids where we tell them, if you mix in 2 cups of good grades and a half a cup of test scores, a couple of teaspoons of extracurriculars, and you blend it up really good, and then let it cook for 4 years, bake it in that high school oven for 4 years, you magically come out with a college acceptance. But that's really not. I mean, what goes into what gives it its spice is different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are there things you were told, hey, this is something that, looking back, you're like, yeah, that really didn't tend to be that big a deal?
I think Allison thought she needed to have every minute filled with something to be a quality on paper applicant. And I think maybe she did some activities longer than she would have when it no longer gave her joy necessarily, but she just did a couple things just to have that on her resume. And I don't think that that was important at all in hindsight. That I think and she would probably say too, she spent some time doing some things that really didn't matter in the end, because she had a few things that she was dedicated to, that she did all 4 years, that she enjoyed and made her happy. And I think that that would have been sufficient. I feel like somehow our culture has made us think that if you're not taking all advanced classes and doing 500 leadership activities and have hours and hours and hours of service projects, and you've invented a company, and also you walk little ladies across the street on Saturdays from 12 to 1, but you only can stay till 12:45 today because you have to be somewhere else. I think that we've been somehow brainwashed into that mentality, and I think it's doing damage to our kids.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we are burning them out. I know that the college admissions rate is great in our area. Kids who want to go to college get into college, but they've worked so hard for that one goal, get in.
Mm-hmm.
What happens after that? How do they stay in? How do they be successful as a college student? Because it's a whole new world, and mom is no longer driving them, scheduling them, pushing them, helping them with homework. Let me print that out for you. There's no more of that. And if there is, don't do that anymore. But I feel like we get them to, and they feel like that's the pinnacle. Okay, I got in.
Mm-hmm.
But then what do you do next? How do you, just like on your wedding day, like people tell you, it's not about the wedding, it's about the marriage. It's not about getting into college. It's about getting and staying and being successful. Because I don't know the stats for last year, but in years past at Keller High, they had great get-in acceptance rates, and they had great rates of students who went back for their sophomore year, but they had lower rates of 4-year graduation. Which means somewhere between sophomore and junior year, something happens.
I need to look up the national number. I want to say it's like 35% of students change schools, transfer schools, mm-hmm. between freshmen and between enrolling and graduating. They change schools.
Oh yeah, huge percentage. And so that's the other thing. You don't have to stay where you go.
Mm-hmm.
What if you don't like it?
But it's hard. So one of the people I've talked with, she actually took 2 years off of college. She said she just needed to. She was stressing out about things, and she needed to do. She talks about doing intensive therapy for 2 years before she went back, and living in New York City while she did it.
Wow.
But she, it was really the hard part for kids, like you just talked about, was you've been told that you need to get into college. And then once you get into college, well, have we equipped you with the tools necessary to be successful at that on your own, when, mom can't call up and ask, mom's not getting, may or may not be getting your grades sent home. Mm-hmm. A lot of parents I talk to, there's a winter meeting that happens when the child comes home after that first semester of discovering a lack of supervision, parental supervision, and beer. And they find that combination a little bit overwhelming.
Very appealing, isn't it?
Yeah. But they're 18, so surely they've never drank beer. but yeah, they get home and they're like, yeah, this isn't what we're sending you off to college to do.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound like Allison had that meeting.
She, we've had some meetings, but she takes care of her business, and
Okay.
so she's fine.
Yeah.
Second child, we may have a meeting, but in equipping them, that also, I feel like we don't let our kids fail. We don't teach them how to fail. They don't know how it feels. They certainly don't want to come tell us that they failed.
You're scared.
Because that's hard. But A&M is full of kids who are the tippy top of the tippy top of the tippy top. And then they go to College Station and they're with everybody who is the tippy top of everywhere. And it's a huge adjustment to not making straight A's all the time. And then they feel failure and they feel hurt, and what can I do? And it becomes a mental health crisis instead of just an academic oopsie. And it makes me sad that we think everyone needs to make straight A's to be a success. So just like everyone will find a college, if somehow, somewhere, there is a college with a fit and a finance plan and a social program that you like, and the scene that you like to do, and the town that you like, and the letters you like to wear. There's some place for everybody. You just have to sometimes do some digging, or a lot of times. But also, there's a job for everybody out there eventually. What does that look like? If you're a teacher, do you go to a $70,000 a year school? No, it's not a good idea. When we were on vacation, we went to Nashville a couple of years ago and walked through Belmont, beautiful campus.
Yes.
Met this student. Just clearly we didn't belong there. We were wearing Aggie gear and walking around Nashville. But we stopped at Belmont, and it's beautiful and amazing, and they have fantastic programming for what they do. They're wonderful. And we talked to this student. He was from Texas, and that's why he stopped to talk to us. And he's going to be a choir teacher in Texas with the Belmont Bills. And he was like, that might not have been the greatest idea, but here I am, and I love it, and I'm going to make it work. But Allison was like, ooh. So apparently she paid attention in our financing for college conversations that we've had. And she knew, if you're going to be a teacher, you don't go to Belmont unless they're going to pay you to go there for some reason, or you build a building or something like that. But
or if I know teachers that graduate from SMU, right? Yeah. But their family could afford to send them to SMU. And it wasn't like, but man, if you're going to graduate as a teacher, as a social worker, as really any kind of public service sector position job, you cannot do it by financing student loans.
Because you never work for yourself ever.
And the thing is, you know what the salary is going to be going in. Like, it's not a surprise that the teacher is going to make about 48 a year. If you're in Dallas, if you're in Oklahoma, you're going to make about 32, 33 a year starting out. Yeah. And one of the things we do in App Camp, I don't think it resonates. I was talking with Jamie from NYU, and she said it wouldn't have mattered to her. Like, she would have been like, no, I'm going to NYU. And so, everybody's going to do the thing. But she's awesome. She's planning on law school now, because she's at the point now. She's like, I'm already in a lot of debt.
We'll keep going and then have a job that'll pay for it. Yeah.
Well, that's she said. She goes, I recognize that to pay off my debt, I'm going to have a job that pays me really well. And so, if you were, Baylor, SMU, someplace like that, where, and Baylor, to its credit, does a lot of. I saw somebody posted this morning that they'd gotten $15,000 in merit aid at Baylor, but they're still $42,000 to figure out how to pay. And the student's only going to get about $5,500 that first year in Stafford loans. They're going to have to figure out plus loans and things like that down the road. 120. I show them, like, we break it down on the last day where I'm like, look, if you make the average salary, let's say it's $5,000, average starting salary $60,000 a year, you're making $5,000 a month. Then you got to take out taxes, and you got to take out this, and you got to take out this, and this is what it's going to actually start looking like once you get your pay. And if you graduate with $37,000 of debt, that's about a $400 a month payment you've got to make right out of college. So
They don't let you wait on that. Apparently, they
so
want their money back.
there's a couple of instruments that are happening. There's a thing called, it scares me. It's called an income share agreement. Purdue is doing this, where they're telling people they'll give you a loan, but it's based on and your repayment is based on your salary once you get out of college, right?
Okay.
What that means is, they're already seeing this happening, that an engineer will qualify for more loan money than a public school teacher will. So if you're an education major, they're not going to loan you as much money as an engineer is going to be loaning. We knew that was going to happen ahead of time.
Yeah.
And then for 10 years, you pay a percentage of your income every month over the next 10 years to repay that loan.
Wow.
And they're backed by VCs. I mean, it's interesting to see. It's so smacks of indentured servitude.
A lot of it is. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
let's see. Other questions that, I mean, you touched on a lot of good stuff. Okay. So no, I know what I want to ask you about this. So you said Allison didn't qualify for academic admit at A&M. Is that the top 10% rule, or was that when they had their academic admit policy?
They still had a top 25% admission with a test score.
Mm-hmm.
And she was in the top 25%, but she was just short of her test.
Okay. So we didn't quite get her there for that, did we?
No, but it was not embarrassing. I mean, it was totally worth it. She was like this close. And every time she took the test, she got better. So she showed growth. Mm-hmm. And at A&M, they want to see every test score.
What people don't know too is like a 1360, which was their academic admit cutoff. That's a 93rd percentile score.
Yeah. Yes, that doesn't suck. I mean, it's a difficult goal to attain. And she is a liberal arts student. She's a liberal arts. Her brain works that way. She can write circles around anyone, but maths, and she doesn't love it. But she was like one problem behind. Yeah. And that was the year where everybody got riled up because of the way the test was scored.
Oh, was that June test, that June 2018 test. It absolutely was.
So she retook it one more time. And I mean, every time she did better, which shows intent. It shows dedication. It shows she didn't give up. She didn't quit. And I told her not to take the test anymore. I was like, you're done. This is ridiculous. You just let it go. And she was like, no, I'm taking it one more time. So she did, and was like literally one question short. So
you made the comment earlier about her being like A&M being full of those top schools, and that's A&M and UT, those two schools, because UT with the 6% rule, but yes. A&M, the common data set. I actually looked at this just last week for A&M for a project I was working on for the year that Allison started, the year before Allison started. She started in 19, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So no, that year, 93% of the students who enrolled at A&M that year were in the top quarter of their class. 93%. So here you are going through school, right? Where for 4 years, you've been in the top quarter of your class. If I remember correctly, Allison was pretty comfortably in the top quarter of her class. It wasn't like she was marginal. If you're used to being there, you're used to taking advanced classes, and then you get on campus where everyone else was also in that same situation. Yeah, it can be, I mean, it's cool because you're around a lot of other smart people. That's really cool. I mean, one of my students who went to Princeton, his observation was, as a freshman, he was in a class with 12 being taught by a Nobel Prize winner.
Wow.
Kind of a cool experience.
Yeah.
Not a cool experience many people get to have, but right. If you're there at A&M, I mean, you look around and everyone there, almost everyone there was top quarter of their class. Mm-hmm. Everyone there is very used to being academically successful.
Yes.
So, and then imposter syndrome can kick in too. That's the thing I think kids aren't prepared for, that everyone feels at some point like an imposter.
Yes, like I can't do this. Mm-hmm. And why am I even here? Who let me in here? Who did this? Whose fault is this?
Especially when that first essay comes back, right? And you're Allison, and you've been told you're this amazing writer, and you get the first essay back, and the professor's like, oh my gosh, and there's blood all over it.
Yes. It's been interesting to hear her talk about also the differences, like when she was in those low lower level major classes, and some of those classes are the classes that everyone needs to take, or they choose to take it as their elective. She said you could tell who had the liberal arts brain and you can tell who has the engineering brain. And she said it was fascinating to see who did well in those classes versus who really struggled. And she couldn't figure out why this other student didn't get it. And she was like, well, that's because he's over there taking advanced calculus classes that she can't even imagine processing. So once you find where you're supposed to be, and you get through all those weed out classes that are required by the state of Texas, then you can thrive. So a lot of times you get through those first 2 years and your grade point's not what you thought, and it's not what you wanted, and that English class kicked your tail, or the math class, whatever is not your thing. And then once you get in your thing, then 4.0 is not hard. Mm-hmm. Once you are where you're supposed to be and your brain is firing on all cylinders and you're excited about what you're doing, making those grades just comes much easier. And you don't have the distraction of the classes that you didn't really like and didn't really want to take, but they made you take them. And then you're with all of your people, and yeah,
there's fun. a C on my college transcript from anthropology, because I had no desire to study anthropology.
But they told you you had to.
I had to take it, but yeah.
Yes, yeah, right. And that's something that I think that it differs between private and state universities that I didn't really pay attention to either. The state of Texas, just like they tell K through 12 buildings, K-12 schools have the Texas Education Agency, and they tell teachers and administrators, this is what you need to teach. Same thing happens in public universities. The state legislature tells state colleges what they want them to teach. So if you didn't realize that, it continues. The state legislature has lots of impact. And Allison had a political science class, and the professor basically told her what was wrong with political science in the state of Texas. And it was a keep your enemies closer kind of know your enemy kind of thing. And they might be your legislators. So she said that was the most interesting class, because the professor clearly didn't really care for the leadership. But
it's, yeah, was the people about, and even at A&M, like Jamie actually talked about going to, like, looking at A&M as a possibility, and realizing that just didn't fit her at all. The NYU kid. And then, but because the A&M known to be like a very conservative population and stuff, but every college has got.
You can find your people just about anywhere. One of Allison's criteria was that it was not a small university. Like, she looked at Austin College, and she looked at even TCU, she felt was too small of a community for her. She wanted a larger student population. So
we talked about, things that you think, Allison, you were told these are big, important things that you look back, what are the three most important things you want to share with Garrett, or you would tell a parent right now whose student, I'm hearing PSAT scores came back last week. I'm hearing a lot of parents are saying, or a lot of kids are saying, oh my gosh. So what are the things that a parent should know? Maybe a parent of a sophomore, junior, you are where you are at this point. What do they need to know going forward?
One, relax. Two, talk to your child. Your kid may not want to do what you think they should do. And that's a hard adjustment to make. If your student is saying, I don't want to be an engineer, then don't make them be an engineer, right? So have those conversations with your student about what kind of problems they want to solve in the world. Maybe not what do you want to do or how much money do you want to make, but what would you like to see and do in the world? And then let's see, try to calm down about it. Talk to your student. And also in the conversations with your students, talk about money. This is how much money we have saved for you, or this is how much we're prepared to provide for your education. This is what we're able to do. or not able to do or whatever, so that they don't go look at a place that then they get accepted to and they do all the work and you're excited. And then you have to say, we can't do that as a family.
Man, and have that conversation early, right?
Early, and also start looking at places that they might be interested in. Take day trip. If you're on vacation, stop somewhere, drive through Belmont and meet the kid that's going to be a choir teacher on Belmont prices, and just see what the vibe is, because they'll know. They'll know what they like. And also have them look at like course guides. You can say, I want to be an engineer, but do you have any idea what you have to do that? What do those classes look like? What do the titles even of the classes say? And if you are inspired by that, go for it. But if you think that sounds like a nightmare, then don't pursue that. And start talking about those things freshman and sophomore year, and don't wait till like fall of senior year to go on a college tour. Have it all done before fall of senior year. So lots of conversations, lots of talking, lots of researching, and some classes are good. Classes will help your student do that. I know Allison did a lot of reports over the years of things, which I thought were very helpful. So, and don't count on your guidance counselors to be able to do this with you, because they don't have time. It's not a guidance counselor thing. They wish that was their thing, but it's not. Keller ISD now has college counselors at each high school that are filling in the gap in Keller ISD now, but we didn't have him before. And so don't count on all of that happening.
Well, and that college counselor, then they probably don't have one alpha group that they're working with. They're probably like kind of maybe working.
They're like everybody. The college counselor is like, come see me.
Okay. So, and then versus a school counselor who, I mean, the national recommended ratio of student to counselor ratio is like 285, something like that, something like that, 265 students to 1. And like almost nowhere, Texas is like 450 to 1 on average. Like if you have a school that has a 400 to 1 student counselor average, you're below, I mean, you're better than the state average.
Yeah.
So it's tough. They have a tough job. Other thing, any questions? I ask a ton of questions. I always like to have any questions. Like,
I always ask you when to start all the process and the thinking about. And so you do a really good job of explaining the timeline. My number one thing is don't bother to take the SAT until after
Algebra 2.
That's my big takeaway. Don't worry about it. Do the PSAT, great. But don't count on your SAT being the best of the best unless you're just a math brainiac, which I think that's great. I'm not. So, and I didn't raise one, but my second one I think might be really smart about that. But algebra 2.
Yeah.
Wait till after that to really start pounding on that.
But you talked about Garrett having dyslexia. Is he getting any kind of does he get any extended time for assignments and things like that?
He can do extended time. He can do, like, the teachers provide him notes ahead of time so he can fill in the blanks, so he doesn't have to do the board to the hand to the hand so much. They have been phenomenal about giving him what he needs to be successful.
Is there so automatically I'm going to say my big recommendation too is, like, when it comes time, the extended time is going to make a bigger difference on an ACT than it does on an SAT. So he may be looking more ACT than SAT. Students who do qualify, because just the hardest part about the ACT is getting all the questions answered in the time that's allotted.
Yes, that's what he said about the PSAT. He took it and he was quite pleased with his score. Like he was like, that was better than I thought. So, and he did better than his sister on one section. So that totally made his day. But
I'm gonna guess it was the math section.
Yeah. And I said, yeah, and you haven't even had algebra 2 yet, as Mr. Bobby will say. So it takes time. Yeah. And that's what he said, was trying to figure out how to know when he should be finished with something. And that I said, well, that's part of test taking strategies that he hasn't had any practice with either. So
Well, it's just grinding out at that point. It's just grinding out practice tests. And
yeah.
there's not any big secret to what it is. It's about getting really familiar with the test and then knowing it. The problem kids have on this test isn't they don't know the information. Like, you know what a comma is, you know what a semicolon is. You just don't know how to apply it to that situation and have to figure that part of it out.
Yeah. And for someone who needs some extra time to think through things, the information's there. It just takes a little bit of extra time to go through it. So we will be looking at figuring out how to get that 504 applied to standardized tests. And if he doesn't need it, he doesn't need it. But
Mhm.
if he has the opportunity, I think he should.
So the timeline then is really December as far as college visits and so work those into vacations. And it doesn't sound like a super exciting thing maybe for vacations, but if you go somewhere, Florida has colleges every time you turn around. So, and even just right here within 3 hours, you can go to UNT, SMU, TCU. You could drive down to Baylor. You could go to A&M. If you're, want to just see a lot of flat land, you can drive out to Lubbock, but
Yes.
no one's vacationing in Lubbock. So
No, but they come on the way to Colorado.
there you go.
I mean, you can get there, right?
But you can see, like Yazan talked about a couple of days ago, he said like he knew he was going to go to UC Boulder when they came over this one particular road and they looked down in the valley and they saw Boulder. He's like, I'm going to this school. He knew it right then. That's where he wanted to spend his 4 years.
Nice.
But go to those places as you're going just to figure out what you're looking for. But then when it comes to the actual test scores, and it's even worse now. I don't think people understand, like as a best case scenario, your test score is like the 4th most important thing on the college admissions list. Grades are the top 3. And so that's big time. But start thinking about test prep or when you're going to take the SAT or the ACT. It's like December of your sophomore year at the absolute earliest.
Mm-hmm.
There's one, I talked with a parent the other day who a company had convinced them that his freshman son needed to start SAT prep for 3 hours a day, 1 day a week, as soon as possible. And I was like, well, that's $8,000 and about 200 hours worth of prep you just don't need.
Well, and that's part of the discussion too. You're exactly right. Of what am I willing to and able to pay for prep? What's going to make a difference? Mm-hmm. For Allison, she really did want to be an automatic acceptance kid. And we knew she could get there pretty close, right? Mm-hmm. Or we wouldn't have done the track that we did for her, or she wouldn't have chosen. But what's worth it? Are you working for scholarships? Are you looking for entrance? And I'm not a fan of testing to get entrance into a university that you don't really belong in. Mm-hmm. Just because you can answer SAT questions doesn't mean that you can excel on that campus in that academic arena. So test scores are not the be all end all. It's just one piece. And mm-hmm. I think that especially in Northeast Tarrant County, we don't do a good job of conveying that it's all about test scores isn't really what it's all about. So it helps, but that's not all.
I think COVID's going to make some changes in that. Colleges, all these colleges that had test optional mm-hmm. application policies, they expected to see about 25% of their applicant pool be test optional. And that's been true for some, but there are some colleges that it's been 75% of their applicant pool or over 50% of their applicant pool.
Wow.
Has applied test options. So they're having to figure out like what's our process for evaluating these applicants. Because the nice thing about a test score is it does give you a snapshot.
It checks the box and it gives you a line. You either meet that goal or meet that criteria or you don't. So it's a good way to ditch something. But if you're looking at a student as a whole student, mm-hmm. and that I'm glad Allison was a holistic admit, because I feel like that was even more reassuring that she's where she needs to be mm-hmm. and is capable, and they really wanted her there because she didn't just get in on the numbers, she got in on who she is and what her plan is. And I think seeing these test optional schools, they're going to have to find a way to look at the whole child instead of just looking at their numbers. Mm-hmm. And grade point averages are different. in every district. So the colleges zhuzh the grade point averages. So even that number doesn't necessarily represent the student at all as well. So that was one thing I didn't really understand either, that Keller High's grade point average doesn't match up exactly with Carroll High's grade point average. And so I tried not to get too hung up on grade point averages, because the college then will look at what they took, what grade they got in it. That's what they want to know. Did you take AP environmental science and get an A, or did you take on level underwater basket weaving and get an A or a 68? So they want to see, what did you take advantage of? What did you do? And how did you do it? So that,
and the schools that GPA is going to be a big factor, they actually are going to take out the classes. They're going to recalculate the GPA. UGA does that, recalculates the GPA with their own metrics, and they don't tell you what the metrics are like.
No, it's a great mystery. Just do your best, take the classes that you want to take, work hard in the classes that you're willing to work hard in, that you find joy in, that it's fun. If you are a history student, then you probably are going to really like pre-AP and AP history. But if you're an engineering student, AP history is going to kick your tail because you don't like it.
And AP English is going to be the absolute worst for you.
Yes. So take dual credit English and get that knocked out. So if you're going to stay in Texas.
Or go to a public school outside of Texas.
Yes. And find that good fit of what you want to do and how you want to do it. And also, I've decided it's all going to be okay.
It's all going to be okay. I think that's a really good place for us to wrap up. Are there any last little things, anything else you want to touch on?
I don't think so. I have all this stuff in my brain. Thank you for letting me share it.
No, I love it.
I learned a lot. And I learned a lot of it from you, Mr. Bybee. So thank you. And it turned out to be true. So I can't say, well, Mr. Bybee told us this and he was wrong. You weren't. You were right.
My wife will change the rules.
Okay, well, I'll manage that. But I really appreciate your expertise and your information and your experience, and the fact that you see all these kids and all the places they come from. You see their transcripts, you see their applications, you see what they're capable of, and then you keep track and you ask about them.
The thing I'm so lucky, and I told you earlier, this is a vanity project for me because I'm getting to talk to parents that I've worked with that I want to see how they did it right. So I make sure I do it right. I get to talk to kids. I've got an interview coming up in a couple of weeks with one of my kids who I was going to tell you about, Garrett. Kelly, when he went off to college, he went to Sam Houston State to major in criminal justice because he was going to be an FBI agent someday. Okay. Kelly is now the lead guitarist in a heavy rock band here in Dallas.
Okay.
You would not recognize Kelly if I showed you his picture. He was the team captain of his soccer team his senior year that we went to state. Versus today, you would not recognize this
before and after.
Yes. But he got down to Sam Houston, and I think his story. He'll tell his story later on. But he basically discovered, learned how to play a guitar his sophomore year of college or something like that, and loved it. Changed his major, and I'm not sure he even graduated from Sam Houston. But he's his band Mothership gets picked up as one of the best heavy rock bands here in Dallas all the time. He's toured all over the world now. So yeah.
And he's happy.
He's happy. That's
he has food to eat and a roof to live under, and And
he's got a great girl that he's very serious about. So yeah.
Nice. That's really cool. And it is not your traditional path, but he did it.
Yep.
He came out on the other side, and that's what we hope for everybody. And I don't want to break my kids in the process. And so it's an exercise in managing my expectations and my anxieties. Mine, not theirs. Mine. So, yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much for talking today. So thank you guys for listening, and looking forward to the next podcast.